Haven't really been making. Go get it. Go get your ball. Haven't really been making as many YouTube videos as I was when I first started the channel. Like everything, there's a honeymoon phase and you're all excited about it. And I quickly lose interest in things, especially things that I don't want to say they're difficult in that you got to remember to post and add hashtags and all that stuff. It's not like physically hard or anything, but I told myself for the next year that I was gonna consistently make videos just telling my story and trying to hash out all these issues and stuff like that. And just had some personal stuff going on, and I got a comment the other day from a friend of my sister's on one of my videos talking about get outside and touch grass. And she brought up seasonal depression, which is a very real thing, and grounding, which I kind of mentioned being barefoot in the video. I didn't want to get too hippy dippy woo woo stuff, but touching the ground with your bare feet is super critical. As humans, we've gotten so far removed from nature and from how we used to live, rubber soled shoes and cars and videos or computers and all this kind of stuff, that getting out and just walking around barefoot and getting out in the sun, especially after a long cold winter like we have out here in Texas. It's what month are we in? Beginning of March, and it's just barely starting to warm up. And I've been spending a lot of time, today is pretty overcast, but I've been spending a lot of time outside in the sun, walking on my property, shooting arrows barefoot, and I feel so much better just getting back to exercising again, getting back to eating right again, getting back outside again. It feels good. I was just listening to a podcast, and they were saying something like 63% of Gen Z is on some sort of medication, whether it's ADD or some sort of antidepressant. And what they're finding, there's actually a symptom now, or a syndrome, or I don't know, of these kids that are getting off of these medications and have no sex drive at all, which, I mean, it's a scary thought. The what they were saying in the podcast, the study they were reading, these kids are just numb down in their, genitals, and it could take weeks, months for them to get any kind of sensation back or feeling back. And it's just scary to think how quick people are to turn. They don't want to solve issues the old-fashioned way. We didn't have these issues before. 100 years ago, people weren't depressed like they are now. It's because you had to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning when the sun rose, out there working the farm. You're out in the sun all day working, and we all know, after a long, hard day's work, or even just a workout at the end of the day, you feel so much better. You feel so much more accomplished. Getting out in the sun and doing some gardening. So many of us now, not me, but so many of us now work inside offices. We sit all day. We stare at computers. Sorry, I'm out here playing with the dog, and I'm trying to make sure he sees where the ball goes. If he doesn't see me throw it, he just stands there and stares at me, and then it's another ball lost. So I got to make sure he's paying attention. So many of our jobs nowadays are just confined to inside, and people take outside for granted. They take the sun for granted. We need to get back to more of back to the Gen Z thing. Yeah, we need to get back to more of what's bothering these kids. Is it their diet? Probably. They're probably eating a bunch of garbage food. I know I'm guilty of it. Every time I give my kid a bowl of cereal, I'm like, it's poison. It's terrible for them. And I do my best, but it's hard, you learn, especially if you already have kids and then you start learning all this as they're, 9, 10, 11 years old, and you start learning about all this and like completely just saying, hey, you are no longer eating none of that stuff anymore. You're only eating this. First of all, their palate's not designed for it, or not used to it. It's going to be a huge, it's a huge feat, it's a huge task to get their diet right. So I just slowly encourage my kid, before a baseball game or even after every practice, I tell all the kids, what'd you have for breakfast? Cereal, waffles, donuts. I'm like, before tomorrow's game, I want you boys waking up and eating some eggs and some steak or some bacon or anything that's just not, refined carbohydrates or sugars and stuff. And a lot of these behavioral issues with these kids is environment and diet. And we really need to work on, as a society, encouraging more. When I was a kid, they had to force us to come inside, not force us to go outside. When I was a kid, my punishment was, Tony, you're grounded. You gotta stay in the house for whatever the punishment was. Now it's like, we gotta force them to get off their computers and get outside. And it's terrible. It's terrible. We definitely could do much better, me included. I'm not perfect. This morning, what did my kid have for breakfast? A Hot Pocket. Ham and egg Hot Pocket, but it's garbage. It's hard. It's hard as a parent to make these big changes, but we're slowly doing it. I've seen huge, and that's another thing is like, I decide to make a huge change in my life, and I'm like, I'm gonna, be super health nut and eat this way. It doesn't mean everyone else is on board with it. You gotta convince everyone. Just much like an addict, you can't force them to get sober. You can't force people to want to change. But we can't keep putting these kids on medications. You know what I mean? Our birth rate is already down. We're falling apart as a society. Kids are sicker than ever. Adults are sicker than ever. Antidepressants are being prescribed like candy, and it's a huge problem. I'm super concerned about it. And we need to be better role models. And I need to be a better role model. My wife and I have been working out a bunch lately together in the garage, and our son sees that. So now he's like, he wants to come out and work out. And our, 10-month-old, he's been out there, and hopefully we can start imprinting this stuff in their brains, that those foods aren't good for you. These foods are what's going to make me big and strong and play good and not going to have the mental fatigue or the mental, fog that all these other foods cause. And it terrifies me that, well, I can't say it terrifies me because I was the same way too, with my back issue. It was, people were telling me, you need to do this, Tony, you need to stretch, you need to work out. One of my buddies was really into fitness. He's like, you need to build your core because it helps support your back. I was like, that makes perfect sense, but screw working out. I'm just going to party, and I could take a handful of painkillers and get back to work. Doctor prescribed them, no big deal, right? But that ain't the case. Those painkillers, for one, after long-term use of painkillers, it makes the pain worse after a while because you start stripping all the natural opiate receptors of opiates, and you're replacing it with synthetic stuff. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. It's a compounding issue. Now that I'm no longer taking painkillers, when my back hurts, it's usually almost 100% of the time because I've been eating like crap and I haven't been exercising. I've been laying around on the couch and eating junk foods. So just something to think about. You know, we really need to get outside more. Get outside and play with your kids. Go play ball in the yard, or even just sit outside in a lawn chair in the sun for 20 minutes while the kids play in the yard. Or I don't know. I definitely think that we can make some real changes in just the way kids behave. There's a kid on our baseball team that has a really problem home life. And I find myself getting irritated and frustrated with him because he just misbehaves. And it's easy to get angry, but I need to get better at being more empathetic, sympathetic, because I was that kid and I was that adolescent, and he needs guidance. He needs he needs a better support structure, and I'm not doing him any goods by just yelling at him. I think it would do him more good to kind of take him under the wing and help him out. Oh, there's the sun. Get my t-shirt off here in a minute. Get some tan going on. So yeah, I think helping him out more and helping him kind of deal with his emotions, you know, from a very early age, I masked a lot of my emotions with drugs and alcohol. You know, very early age, smoking pot. My mom tells me the other day that I'm an angry person, and she's not wrong. I am angry. I have a lot of resentment and a lot of built up frustration, and like never really learned to deal with the emotions because I dealt with them through drinking and fighting. I got in a lot of fist fights. And for one, I never really understood where it was coming from. I mean, now as an adult, I can see where it all came from. But I mean, the damage is done, you know. I've been abusing substances for so long that do I even really know how to be sober or how to deal with emotions on my own? And not to mention all of the things that made me angry as a kid, like being forced to sit still and sit in class all day and listen to some stuff I didn't care anything about. Just being forced into having to do things that I resent and despise even as an adult. These the mechanisms are still there, you know, the triggers are still there. I mean, I'm an adult now, and I obviously have a better understanding of it, but everything I was forced to do as a kid, I'm just kind of forced to do as an adult now. And it's tough. It's tough. I mean, being an addict's way easier. It's way easier to just completely numb yourself and just check out. But that's no way to live. You know what I mean? And that's what we're doing to these kids. I mean, that's what this whole video was about, was how many kids are on meds. And I mean, we've only spent the last maybe week and a half coming outside and getting some sun, and we all feel a lot better. You know, me and my wife were at each other's throats for the last little bit of winter here. We're just sick of being cooped up in the house. No vitamin D. We weren't exercising. We weren't eating well. And within 2 weeks of just making these changes, we're getting along way better. I feel better. Even just like my patience for stuff has improved. You know, just burning off some of that energy. You know, working out, and been shooting a lot of arrows, which has been good and bad. Good and bad. So yeah, I mean, do your own research, you know, look into this stuff. You know, I'm not saying that no kids should be on medications. There's a time and a place for everything. I just don't think all kids. I think we jump to a quick fix too many times instead of just trying to learn about what's bothering them. How can we fix them, or how can we help them without putting them on a prescription drug? And we should be leaning more towards that kind of stuff. You know, the summer break is right around the corner. I told, wow, big old gust of wind. Well, summer break's right around the corner, and I told my boy we need to build a chicken coop. So as soon as summer break hits, we're gonna be out in the yard building a chicken coop. Find stuff like that to do with your kids. Get outside, make them, force them to help you on projects. Don't ask them. You give them an option, they're gonna say, I'm gonna stay inside and play video games. It's too hot outside. Tell them you have to come outside and help me build this chicken coop, or you cannot play your video games. At least that's my plan. All right, talk to y'all later.